Hello everyone. For those of you who haven't met me, my name is Kaylee Jones and I'm the Vice President of Events and Marketing on the Curtin Young Alumni Advisory Board, also known as the YAB. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Today, I'm pleased to welcome you to our Leadership Breakfast turned webinar. Our Leadership Breakfast has been a notable event on our calendar every year since 2018. However, this year, due to COVID-19, we've had to change things up a little. In this time of great change, what better guest could we have than Nick Lim, who is a Curtin graduate and Change Strategist at BHP. Having graduated from Curtin with a Bachelor of Psychology in 2009 and later earning a Master's in Organisational Psychology, Nick made a name for himself exploring and building the makings of great leaders. Nick worked as a management consultant at Accenture for 6 years before making the jump to BHP last year, where he coordinates transformation and innovation. In his spare time, he spearheads various charitable initiatives and is currently the president of the Rotary of Elizabeth Quay. Nick truly is a leader, not only in the community, but a leader in innovation. Please welcome Nick Lim to the webinar.
I'm Nick Lim, and I'm here to talk to you about my leadership journey, sharing some of my experiences that might help you as you're exiting university and entering the workforce. So I'm not a leader, or at least I thought so, when Dean and his team from the Alumni came to talk to me. And as I started to reflect on my experiences over time, I realized that perhaps leadership wasn't the best definition of my experiences. Perhaps it was too narrow. It's really about discovery, iteration, and authenticity. Before I start, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. And I come to you tonight wearing 3 hats. The first hat is that I'm the incoming president of the Rotary of Elizabeth Quay. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later, but this is one traditional area of leadership that I've been developing. The next is that by day, I'm actually a principal improvement in finance BHP. And it's strange to think about me being in finance, to be fair, given that my background is in psychology and culture. But again, I'll explain a little bit about that further. Lastly, my third hat is that I recently got married. We were planning to get married on the 17th of April. And approximately 1 month before, my girlfriend, fiance at the time, came together to do some planning and realized it was not going to happen. So we decided the next day, in fact, after we cancelled our wedding, or indefinitely postponed it, we called up some vendors and we realised that all we needed was just Lucy, myself, a celebrant and a great photographer, and we got married. But that's a little bit about me. I'd like to share another angle, and this is the one relating to my journey in leadership. And to get an understanding of who I am today, I have to take you back to where I started from. So my career at the moment, as I mentioned, I'm the principal of improvement in a finance team. We're delivering a global transformation project. But previous to this, I was a change manager in a transformation function. Previously to that, I was a senior manager in one of the world's largest consulting firms. And my academic background is in organisational psychology. In fact, it actually started at Curtin. I did my undergrad at Curtin in psychology and continued on with my studies in a Master's of Organisational Psychology. After that, I really got a taste for my passion and started my career in consulting. So my first job was with a boutique consulting firm called ODG Solutions. I did some placement work for them and then we kicked it off basically. I hit the ground running and had a fantastic time with them. I worked for them for a year and cut my teeth on everything there is to know about consulting. In fact, it formed my whole concept of consulting. And my time there working with my mentors and with the team really helped to galvanise how I wanted to show up in the workplace and the difference I wanted to make. As I said, that role went for a year, and shortly after I joined Accenture. Accenture has, when I left, over 540,000 people. It is a massive consulting firm, and I was really privileged to spend 6 years of my career with them. As I mentioned, I was a senior manager with them in a part of the business called talent and organisation. And really, the role that I was playing there as a senior manager was to lead teams in delivering bodies of work to our clients, particularly in the oil and gas and mining sector. But as well as that, my role was responsible for marketing our capabilities to generate more work, developing thought leadership. And as a result of this, I became known in the company for design thinking, a style and philosophy of delivering projects and meeting the end user's expectations in design. And more recently, I've since left Accenture and joined BHP. I started my role off with BHP in transformation, and I'm now working in a transformation project in finance, and that's why I have the title of Principal Improvement BHP. But what actually connects my journey in leadership? Well, I did a bit of soul searching when the Curtin Alumni invited me to give this presentation, and I reflected on all of my opportunities and experiences through my career. And I realized that when it comes to leadership, it was the complementing opportunities to develop my leadership that have actually created opportunities far beyond those of my traditional career. And although my technical skill set has grown and blossomed through these amazing organizations like Accenture and BHP, it's really the opportunity to contribute to the broader community that has really accelerated my leadership capacity. So what does that look like? Well, when I was in Curtin studying, I was a youth leader at church. Led camps of up to 140 people, hosted events pretty much 50 weeks of the year, every Saturday night, and led and coordinated a group of 12 to 15 leaders in that group. And I did that for probably about 10 years. Alongside that, I did a RYLA, Rotary Youth Leadership Award. It was a simple camp, but it really helped to let me stand back and reflect on what was important to me and the difference I wanted to make. And through that, I got the opportunity to facilitate a John Curtin Leadership Academy camp, which again galvanized my view of what leadership was and who I wanted to be. But all the while I was exploring, I helped to run a local Rotary chapter in Perth, and we grew that for a number of years. And then I complemented those experiences in my broadly philanthropic and community-oriented organisations. Now I started shifting back into the change management sector. I wanted to be in change management. I wanted to be a change manager. I saw everyone around me had these titles, thought it was a pretty good title, so why not offer to help out in the local change management institute? So I put my hand up and knocked on a couple of doors, and they said yeah, so I jumped on board, and slowly but surely I became known as Mr. CMI in Perth, which was really strange because I was the youngest person on the committee and I was running the comms. But you see, when I was doing comms, that meant that everyone coming through the front door would get to meet me. I was the front face on LinkedIn and social media. I was the front face on email. And when people arrived at events, I was typically the first person to meet and greet them. So my name and personal brand became synonymous with the CMI. And from a young age, I started to uncover the value of networks and contribution. But I'll continue on with my journey and we'll come back to those lessons. The next one was an interesting one. I joined the board of a small school for children with special needs. Before my time in consulting and during my academic studies, I was actually an education support assistant, which basically means I help teachers to deliver programs of work and education in high schools. And specifically, I was working with kids with special needs. So I personally have a lot of compassion and empathy for people in those circumstances, and this opportunity arose. I'll tell a story about how I joined that organisation a little later, but it is a personal passion of mine to give back to the community. And as you can see, as I step through each of my roles and responsibilities, my capacity is expanding, my contribution is deepening, and my knowledge about governance, about strategy, about organisational performance is developing. Around the same time, I started another organisation called the Perth Learning Professionals, and at the time, I wasn't really known for learning. I mean, I had a passion in education, as you can see, but learning and development professionals is a very specific line of expertise in an HR function. And I've never really held that sort of role before. But like the others, I put my hand up, jumped not with 1 foot, but with 2 feet, probably off the cliff at that point in time, and just had to run. And through that experience, I learned that a really valuable lesson of throwing your hat, wallet, everything you think is valuable, ego over the fence, and chasing after it to collect it. And you really discover what it's going to take to be someone bigger than yourself, to expand and develop yourself, to be able to contribute more broadly than what you did when your wallet was safely in your pocket. Again, I spent some time with the PMI. This is a rough timeline, but after my time in the CMI, I was there for about 3 years. I then shifted over to the Project Management Institute. Again, I'm not a project manager. In fact, I really don't like project management. It's really boring for me, and it's really detailed, and I'm very much not a detailed person. But I joined the committee as the communications director, and I just started in the same way they did with the CMI, meeting, greeting, supporting, enabling, and providing whatever support that I thought was helpful to the committee. Listening to people was really important. Understanding what they wanted was really important, and I found it really easy. You just listen to people and basically pass it through the lens of your technical skill set and do it, and you'll find results occur. And as I developed in that role, I ended my time there as the vice president of the PMI. Strange to consider an organisational psychologist with no project management criteria being the vice president of the peak body for project management in Western Australia. I got some amazing opportunities. I travelled to Hong Kong, to Sydney, to Mongolia to attend conferences, or in fact to speak. And it was just the fact that I threw my hat and wallet and everything that I knew, ego, over the fence, and I just scrambled over to catch it. And through those experiences, I developed. The second last one is the Rotary of Elizabeth Quay. I touched on this earlier, but I helped to architect this organisation from the get-go. Some friends of mine who we started the Rotaract Club spoke, and we decided to create a new club all on its own, defined by vitality, defined by innovation and fresh thinking, to bring a new philosophy of philanthropy into Rotary. And last but not least, in the last 12 months, I was nominated to host a very, very exclusive community called the HR Leaders Roundtable. Oh, in fact, that's what it's called now. It's probably about 25 to 30 people, all HR directors, sitting around the table talking about HR matters. And you can see a pattern here, right? Like, I've never held a HR role. I've never been a technical line leader, I've never had, I've been a senior manager in Extension, that's given me a lot of credibility in that space, but these are HR leaders, chief people officers, and they invited me to help. Before I tell you the answers to some of these questions and the golden thread that weaves these together, I want you to appreciate that a career in leadership and your capacity to expand and develop is far beyond the career that you have in your paycheck. And for me, my journey of leadership is actually one outside of my technical skill set. Philanthropy, of community, and of giving back. So I'm going to deep dive into a couple of lessons here, and I've summarized them into 4 key facts. Leadership facts. What I wish I had known beforehand. With a bit of a twist. So the first is that there's leadership genetics. There's something in the blood that describes and defines leaders. And you've either got it or you haven't. The second is that it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's not about your technical skill set, it's about your relationships. The third is that leaders are always the boss. You can't be the leader unless you're the top dog. And the last is that knowing yourself is key. You've got to know your strengths, you've got to know your capabilities before you can contribute, before you can make a difference, before you can be a leader. You might notice some of my skepticism in the lessons and facts that I'm sharing with you, but that's part of the lessons that I learned. These were the assumptions that I had about leadership. And to some extent, the assumptions I had even before writing this presentation. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about why each of these facts are either true or false in my life. So, before Curtin University, I was at school and I thought that leaders were born. They just have it. I wasn't the cool guy. I wasn't the sporty guy. I wasn't the Brad Pitt, although my COVID stubble may contradict that. I was just a guy in school that liked to be with people, to listen to people, to hang out, to be friends. And by some strange set of circumstances, I was elected as the head boy. And it was perplexing to me at the time, and maybe now I understand it, but what that really showed me was that it isn't about having the looks, having the brains, having the brawn. It was actually about something more fundamental. I actually really cared about people in my cohort, and I'm not saying that the cool, sporty Brad Pitts don't care about them either. But this was a feature of mine. I spent time with people. I listened, I understood. And as you can see, as I mentioned earlier, my experiences with Ryla, with John Curtin Leadership Academy, and as a church leader, this was really becoming a capability of mine that people would see me as someone to talk to listen to spend time with. And through those experiences, I learned that mentoring and coaching are so critical. So my lesson here is actually not that leadership is in the blood and in the genetics. It's actually about just getting out there. It all starts with one step, and that one step has to be taken by you. And most importantly, that step has to be something different. So you can't keep stepping the same way, expecting the same results. Everyone knows that quote. I'm not even going to tell you, it's boring. But we seem to think that someone's going to tap you on the shoulder and give you a badge and say, hey, you're the leader, go. And it never happens that way. Well, at least for me, it didn't. Leadership was just something that occurred. And it's all because I took 2 steps out of my comfort zone and started working for people. And that was the start of my leadership journey. It's not the genetics. Get out there, and it all starts with one step. Secondly, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And this is a strange one, but when I was working for ODG Solutions, my boss at the time said, Nick, you've got to get some stories. And it was quite funny because I was pretty keen to get into consulting. Consulting sounded like a cool thing to do out of university. But I was trying to sell to people about twice my age. I was trying to convince people who were technical specialists that I knew or I could help. And Mark said, Nick, you've got to get some stories. Have you thought about joining a board? And I was like, yeah, board sounds cool. Let's do that. So he had to talk to some of the people that he knew. And he said, oh, there's this opportunity at a school. And I was like, I know nothing about educational governance. I know nothing about being a board member. But hey, I learned the lesson before about jumping with 2 feet out of your comfort zone. I guess I'll learn as I go. So I was the youngest board member of this school. It's school for kids with special needs. And my passion for helping, for listening, and for being there for people basically just shone through. And as the title describes, not long into that, I was the director of marketing, and after about a year and a half, the chairperson said I'm stepping down. And I thought, oh, okay, this is interesting. I didn't expect that there'd be a leadership coup so soon. And they said, and I'd like to nominate Nick as the next chairperson. And I was like, where's this Nick? And I realised they were talking about me. And so I've got these parents, mothers, dads, school chaplains, psychologists, directors of other organisations like the local government sitting around the room going, yeah, Nick, you're the guy. And I was really taken aback. I thought, you got the wrong guy. I'm just new here. I don't know what I'm talking about. But being the youngest person and having some experience in just stepping to fit in, I realised that I should just give it a crack. So I jumped on and I was the chairperson for approximately 6 years. And we took the school to be an independent public school, which is a significant accomplishment for a public school. And I learned the value of making bold requests. I spoke to Deb before, and she said, "Why do you want to be on the committee on the committee at that time?" And I made a bold request. I said, "I think I can make a difference. I'd like to support. I think I've got a technical skill set that can assist you that you don't have. Give me a go." And in that experience, I learned the value of a bold request of yourself and of others. So the next lesson I'd like to go through kind of echoes that idea of making a bold request, but this is in another organisation I founded. I was working for a large bank, delivering a learning transformation, and partway through the project they said, "Oh, well, let's find out what other people are doing." So I knocked on a few doors, we brought a few people together, and hey presto, we hosted an event called a Learning Summit. I didn't really speak. In fact, no, I didn't speak. I wrote the agenda that someone else told me to. I printed the badges. Similarly, I went and shook everyone's hand. I made myself visible, and I was there to help. And since then, 3 months later, actually, I finished the project, and they came back to me, and they said, "Nick, when's the next one?" And I looked at them and I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was just doing that one because you asked me to. Luckily, that didn't actually come out of my mouth. And learning from the last lesson about making bold requests, I said, "Yeah, the next one's in 2 months' time." And without knowing how to deliver the next Learning Summit, without having any of those contacts, I threw my wallet, my ego over the wall, and I just made it happen. Now, I think it's about 8 years on. We have about 700 people on the mailing lists. We host events for free. In fact, industry come to me asking, can I host? They put on drinks, alcoholic drinks in fact. They put on beautiful spreads of canapes. They have people holding the doors. And they invite me up to speak, to say thank you for hosting. It's very strange to me that they're asking me to do that when they're the ones who are making the contribution. But over this time, I've realised that it's been 8 years that I've been the glue to stick this together. And the glue was literally making an offer. Can I help you? Can I offer something of value? Most of the time it was, yeah, can I run this idea past you? Or can you help me with your slides? Or can we find a venue? And I just asked this question of everyone else, and these bold requests turned into actually creating something. The Perth Learning Professionals. We host events with over 100 guests and they book out within 24 hours. We have a committee of about 8 people, and we're a non-incorporated body. We don't have any sort of tax or legal entity that defines us, but somehow we have a culture and a way of working and a community of lifelong learners. So I really challenge everyone to throw their wallet and hat over the wall and take a jump. This is the Perth Learning Professionals at one of our Christmas events. And at the time I didn't know anything about myself in learning. In fact, I've still never held a technical learning role. So one could say I didn't really know anything about myself. And if you're supposed to know yourself before you do things, this would have never have occurred. I didn't know about myself. I just put myself out there, learnt on the job, got dirty, bit of blood, sweat and tears, and I discovered what's possible. The third one, and just really quickly, is about the Project Management Institute. Just a couple of photos. I was invited over to Mongolia to train 120 leaders, project managers in design thinking. Me, from down under, Perth, was asked by the Mongolian chapter to teach them about design thinking. So, I mean, you knew what I said, right? Heck yes, I'm doing this. Have I ever done it before? Kind of. They've been building up this skill set and capability, but these are the opportunities that were starting to make themselves available. I wasn't a project manager. At the time, I was the vice president of the PMI, but yeah. Similarly, you'll see here that curated conversations. This is Ian Jackson from Curtin University, another product of another event of the product of the Perth Learning Professionals. We curated a conference about virtual reality. I just went and started talking to people. Hey, can you bring your virtual reality hats here? Can you do this? Can you help me out? And lo and behold, I discovered something about myself. Knowing myself wasn't key, but it was to be a service to other people and get interested in others. That was actually the game changer. Similarly, with the Rotary Club of Elizabeth Quay, we all think that leadership is about being the boss, being the top dog. But I would argue that it's definitely not. It's actually the opposite. And my experience is all around, I mean, if an organisation was defined by top and bottom, it was about coming up from the bottom, really. Helping out people who were just shoulder to shoulder with me. So I believe there's a generosity revolution, and I've talked about it on LinkedIn. And as the co-founder of the Rotary Club of Elizabeth Quay, we're trying to make philanthropy accessible to everyone. It's not just the boss that does the good deed. It's actually in the hands of everyone to be able to contribute generously. So we came up with this idea called the generosity card. It's literally just a piece of cardboard. But if you look closely there, you can see that it looks like a credit card. And we had a bit of fun with this credit card concept. And then slowly but surely started getting traction. These are senior leaders holding the card, talking about the card at some of our events. Dr. Andrew Liu, Sam Walsh, who is the ex-CEO of Rio Tinto, Ron Muchenberg, who's at the time was the MD of Bankwest. And this just reinforced to me that leadership is not about having the top dog. It is actually about being of service and being interested in other people. And one last lesson around not being the boss. I was invited to curate a forum for senior HR leaders. You can see a pattern here, right? Like, I'm offering to help in an area that I have no credibility with people that, in many regards, more experienced, more technically savvy than me. Some may argue they're probably even smarter than me. In fact, they're definitely smarter than me. And when I was invited, they asked me, Nick, why do you want to curate this group? It's a small group. There's HR leaders from some of the largest organisations in Perth. Why do you want to organise these events, these conversations? Is it the money? Do you want to be paid for this? And I was quite offended, actually. I don't want to be paid for this. This is not about money for me. And they said, okay, right. So, is it about the contacts? Because everyone, wants to rub shoulders with the leaders, so it must be the contacts. I said, it's not about the contacts. Perth is a small place. If anyone really needs to talk to anyone, they're kind of 2 steps away from most people. So it wasn't the network. And I stood back and I had a look at myself and I thought, what is the pattern here of my contribution? So I turned back to them and I said, you represent the largest stake of the workforce in Western Australia. My interest in working with you is to make a difference to the largest stake of the workforce in Western Australia. I want to make Western Australia the best place to work in the world. And I think that purpose is what's driving me to contribute. And they jumped on. And there's no hierarchy here. I curate the forum, we host conversations, and we collectively make a difference to the workforce of Western Australia. You can see this pattern developing, right? So here we are at an event last year, and a conversation that triggered quite a number of initiatives and shared thinking. And so, outside of all of these, I have one other passion project, and really I want to reinforce just one thing. This is an idea that I had in a car, and within 10 days, we completely changed what we thought was possible. We set up an agile team, and I had never hosted an online anything. I never had any experience in the hospitality or entertainment industry. I had no contacts in restaurants. I had no friends that could help me, although I believe that was the case. And what happened was that I secured the partnership from local restaurants, Royale's Chicken and Burgers, Posh Little Cakes, More and More Cafe, very well restaurant establishments. Posh Little Cakes has over 240,000 followers on Instagram. Royale's is the cult burger joint if you want a great burger in Perth. And More and More Cafe is a Fremantle institution. We secured charity partners. I secured these partners actually within 12 hours of putting the request out there. We set up a dedicated team of 5 people, and we set up an event within less than 10 days. Our first event raised over $1,200, and our next episode raised over $3,300 with 249 tickets sold. Our next event's on the 23rd of May. Who knows what's going to happen? Now the MC, the host of an online cooking show. Like, what? I like cooking, but this is just a bit of fun. And someone asked me, is this your dream come true? And I took a step back. It's nothing about cooking for me. It's about being innovative, working at pace, and collaborating with others. So I want to dispel some of these facts. They're actually just insights to me. It's not about leadership genetics. It's just getting out there. It starts with one step. It's not about what you know and who you know. It's actually about making bold requests of yourselves and others. Do something different. Ask someone to jump on the bus with you. Be bold. It's not about leaders being the absolute boss, and excuse my spelling there. It's about being service to other people, being interested in others. And lastly, it's about knowing yourself. Not about knowing yourself and starting there, self-discovery. It's actually being passionate about something and just talking to as many people as possible about that. And maybe there's a real theme about being a hustler in here, going out and spruiking and pitching ideas, but that capability is only really developed with these experiences, and you only really develop yourself if you get out there and do things. So for many of you wondering about what you should be doing, stop wondering. Simon Sinek has this great quote, and this presentation wouldn't be complete without a Simon Sinek quote. He said, "A vision is like a dream. It would disappear unless you do something about it. Do something big. Do something small. Just stop wondering. Go on an adventure." And that's my challenge to everyone who's listening to this podcast. Get your wallet, get your ego, get whatever you think is valuable and throw it over the wall. Put it in a place where you don't know how to get it back. And I promise you that it will take something from you to get it back. And when you get it back, you'll have transformed. So I was asked to answer a couple of questions after this presentation, and we had a couple of questions come in online through LinkedIn. And if anyone has any questions after this, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to continue the conversation about leadership and your personal journey. And if you had any questions for me, I'd be happy to take them forward. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. But here's 2 brief questions. So the first one is, what do you think the most important leadership skills that leaders and managers possess today? Well, reflecting on my presentation so far, I think there's a couple of critical skills for managers and leaders, and aspiring managers and leaders. I think one of those skills is empathy, listening, understanding, and specifically treating your employees like they're your volunteers. Like every day they come to work looking to do something that empowers them, that inspires them, that brings them purpose. If we shift back into a mechanical view of leadership, thinking that they're just fulfilling a task for me, they're just going to fulfill the task for you. And not only is that boring, but that really constrains any area of innovation, creativity, passion, desire. So yeah, empathy, listening, and not being afraid to challenge the status quo. Because a lot of people, I was in a meeting the other day and someone said, oh no, we can't change the operating model. It was designed with purpose. We don't want to change the structure. It was designed with purpose. We can't rearrange the process. There was someone smart was thinking about this. And I said, yeah, someone smart was thinking about that. But that was smart in another context. This was designed 4 years ago. They were very smart 4 years ago with the constraints, what their possibilities were, what their perception of what was possible. But that's 4 years ago. Like, don't you think they would maybe have a different view about it now? And what's more, that was me that designed the operating model. That was me that designed the org structure. I wrote those processes. And I can tell you right now, they don't make sense anymore. Fortunately for that person, I was there to dispel that myth. But everyone kind of goes around thinking that the status quo is the status quo, and that's why we have to do it. Stop and think. There's always another way to do something. There's always a way to improve something. And as a leader, we should be open to exploring other possibilities of doing things. The next question here is, do I have a mentor? Yes. I have a number. If yes, why do I have a mentor? Okay. Why do I have a mentor? Because I have 2 eyes and 2 ears, and they sit on my head, and they cannot experience the world the way that anyone else can experience it. That might be a kind of fluffy way of saying that I don't really know what anyone else is thinking. I can't see the world from anyone else's perspective. I can understand the world from anyone else's viewpoint. And that's why I have a mentor. I have a number of people I go to for thoughts and guidance. And yeah, they are guiding me and supporting me. And in most instances, they offer me another perspective. And most of the time, I'm like, yeah, that's true. I should probably think about it this way. And some of the times, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go with my gut on this one. And that's the value of a mentoring relationship. Next question. What do you see in your mentor that makes you want to be a better leader? So I'm not going to pick a specific mentor here. I can think about a number of people who've mentored me over the years and have given me guidance and have been a real sounding board. And I think the thing that inspires me, that makes me want to be a better leader, is what they provide to me in their listening and in their playing back. So most of the time, I'm like, hey, I got this crazy idea. What do you reckon? Could we do X, Y, Z? And they're usually like, great idea, Nick. Have you considered 1, 2, 3? And I'm like, okay, I never thought about it like that. And usually I'm so on this roller coaster of energy, I'm like, no, but this is why ABC works. And their patience and commitment to me is what usually slows me down and helps me reflect. So that listening, that patience, and they're providing me an alternative, not that it's the right way, just another view, really helps me to inspire me to be a better leader. And the last question is, if I don't have a mentor, why don't I have a mentor? And I think the thing is, there's lots of areas in life that you can have mentors, and lots of areas in life that you can be kind of like expand your perspectives. So I think I see mentors as partners, actually. I see the traditional form of mentoring where there's a a mentor and a mentee, where there's a teacher and a learner, is actually quite, it's expired. So I would say in many ways that I mentor them. And this isn't coming from any place of ego or, or thinking I'm amazing. It actually just comes from the perspective that they're learning from contributing to me. And likewise, I learn by listening to them and by offering them another opinion. And that's what I apply as a leader. Just a sounding board, empathy, passion, and conviction about things. So, I'm not a leader. Discovery, iteration, authenticity. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Nick. That was an excellent presentation full of great insights and knowledge. I certainly got a lot out of it, and I hope you did too. That concludes our Leadership Breakfast turned webinar for now. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's presentation, and we'd also love to know what other events you'd like to see in the future. Feel free to send us an email at youngalumni@curtin.edu.au or drop us a message on the Curtin Young Alumni Facebook or LinkedIn pages. Thank you again for coming along to our first online event. It's been a pleasure having you, and we look forward to seeing you soon.